Before we get into the story, leave a comment and let us know what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The morning light stabbed through the floor-to-ceiling windows like an accusation. Daniel Cross opened his eyes slowly, wincing at the pounding in his skull. The silk sheets felt too soft, the room too bright, and something was wrong. Very wrong. He blinked, trying to piece together where he was, his penthouse. Good. At least he'd made it home. But then he felt it. Warmth beside him, the gentle rise and fall of breathing that wasn't his own. Daniel turned his head, every muscle protesting the movement, and froze. There, tangled in his expensive sheets, her dark hair splayed across his pillow like she belonged there, was Sarah Mitchell, his assistant, his chronically clumsy, perpetually apologetic, infuriatingly endearing assistant. She wore one of his dress shirts, the white fabric sliding off one bare shoulder, and nothing else that he could see. Daniel's heart stopped, then kicked into overdrive. What the hell happened last night? He tried to sit up, but the room spun violently. Fragments flashed through his mind. The company anniversary party. Champagne towers. Sarah's laugh cutting through the crowd. Dancing. Had they been dancing? His hand on her waist. Her perfume. Something sweet and unexpected. Then nothing. Just a black void where his memory should be. Beside him, Sarah stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. Those warm brown eyes that always seemed too honest for the corporate world. For a moment, she smiled, soft and sleepy. Then awareness crashed over her like a bucket of ice water. Her eyes went wide, her face drained of color. She looked at him, at the sheets, at herself, and let out a sound somewhere between a squeak and a gasp. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." Daniel found his voice, though it came out rougher than intended. "Sarah." She bolted upright, clutching the sheet to her chest, her face now blazing red. "Mr. Cross, I don't... What did we..." He held up a hand, trying to project calm he didn't feel. "I don't remember." Her eyes searched his face, desperate. "You don't remember?" "No." The word hung between them, heavy with implications. Sarah's breathing quickened. She looked around the room as if searching for clues, her gaze landing on the trail of discarded clothing leading from the door to the bed. A black dress, his jacket, her heels, one by the nightstand, one halfway across the room. His tie wrapped around the bedpost. "This can't be happening," Sarah breathed. "This is a nightmare. I'm going to wake up, and I'll be in my apartment, and you'll still be my terrifying boss who I've never, ever..." She cut herself off, pressing her hands to her face. Daniel swung his legs out of bed, grateful to find he at least had his boxers on. He stood, ignoring the way the room tilted, and grabbed his robe from the chair. His mind raced, trying to be logical, professional. But how could you be professional when you'd apparently spent the night with your assistant and couldn't remember a single moment of it? "Okay," he said, his CEO voice kicking in. "Let's stay calm." "Stay calm?" Sarah's voice pitched higher. "Mr. Cross, I woke up in your bed, wearing your shirt with absolutely no memory of how I got here. Calm is not an option currently available to me. Despite everything, despite the chaos and confusion, Daniel felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Even in crisis, Sarah was painfully, refreshingly honest. It was one of the things he'd always liked about her, even if he'd never let himself acknowledge it. "We need to figure out what happened," he said. Sarah nodded frantically, then winced and touched her temple. "Okay. Okay. The party. We were at the party. Obviously. You were giving that speech. The one about innovation and whatever. I was standing by the champagne fountain because I was nervous and I always eat when I'm nervous. But there was only champagne, She stopped. Oh no. What? I don't really drink, Mr. Cross. Like, ever. Because I get clumsy when I'm sober, so drunk I'm basically a disaster waiting to happen. But last night, I was stressed because my ex showed up with his new girlfriend, and they looked so happy, and I just kept drinking and she covered her face again. I'm so fired. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. You're not fired? I slept with my boss. That's like career suicide. Oh God, everyone's going to know. Jessica in accounting is going to have a field day with this. She already thinks I only got the job because... Daniel turned to look at her. Because why? Sarah met his eyes, vulnerability written across her face. Because I'm young and female, and you're, well, you. I hired you because you're brilliant, Daniel said quietly. Your organizational skills are unmatched. Your instincts about people are almost always right. And you're the only person in that building who tells me when I'm being an ass. Sarah blinked. I do that. Constantly. A beat of silence passed. Then Sarah laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. This is insane. Yesterday morning, I brought you coffee and reminded you about your dentist appointment. Now, I'm sitting in your bed, wearing your clothes with no idea if we... She couldn't finish the sentence. Daniel couldn't either. The possibilities hung in the air between them, charged and terrifying. He cleared his throat. My phone. Where's my phone? Sarah pointed to the nightstand. Daniel grabbed it, noting with dismay that it was dead. Of course, he crossed to his dresser, found the charger, plugged it in. While they waited for it to power up, Sarah carefully extracted herself from the bed, keeping the sheet wrapped around her. She gathered her dress and shoes, her movements jerky with embarrassment. I should go, she said. No. The word came out sharper than Daniel intended. Sarah froze. If you leave now, we won't figure this out, he said more gently. And we need to figure this out. She bit her lip, clearly torn, then nodded. Can I use your bathroom? Of course. She hurried into the ensuite, closing the door behind her. Daniel heard the water running. He pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to summon any memory of the previous night. Nothing. Just that black void. His phone chimed to life. Daniel grabbed it, scrolling through missed calls and messages. His brother had called 3 times. His COO had sent a message at midnight saying the party was a huge success. And there, at 2 a.m, was a text from Marcus Chen, his head of security. Boss, you and Sarah left together. Looked pretty cozy. Just FYI. Daniel's stomach dropped. His fingers moved quickly, opening his photo gallery. Please don't let there be evidence. Please. But there it was. A selfie, clearly taken last night. Sarah was laughing, her head thrown back, her hair wild. And Daniel was looking at her with an expression he'd never seen on his own face before. Open, unguarded, almost tender. His arm was around her shoulders, pulling her close. Oh hell, he muttered. The bathroom door opened. Sarah emerged, still wrapped in the sheet, but with her face washed and her hair somewhat tamed. She'd clearly been crying. I should go home, she said quietly. Change. Process. Maybe scream into a pillow. Sarah. She shook her head. This is too weird, Mr. Cross. I can't. I don't know how to be in your bedroom and still call you Mr. Cross. I don't know how to look at you without wondering if we... Her voice cracked. Daniel stood and crossed to her. She looked up at him, her eyes red-rimmed and uncertain. He found himself wanting to pull her close, to comfort her, but that would only make things more complicated. We'll figure this out, he said. Together. I promise. Sarah searched his face, then nodded slowly. Okay. Together. Daniel watched as Sarah disappeared back into the bathroom with her dress, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the evidence on his phone. He scrolled through more messages, finding a video someone had tagged him in on the company's internal social media. His finger hovered over it, dread pooling in his stomach. When he pressed play, he immediately wished he hadn't. The video showed the dance floor crowded with employees in their evening best. And there, right in the center, were Daniel and Sarah. They were pressed close, moving to a slow song, her arms around his neck, his hands on her waist. But it was the way they looked at each other that made Daniel's breath catch, like nothing else existed, like the 100 other people in the room had vanished. Sarah emerged from the bathroom, now dressed, her hair pulled back. She'd managed to look almost professional, except for the slight smudge of last night's makeup under her eyes and the wrinkled state of her dress. "I called a car," she said, not meeting his eyes. "It'll be here in 10 minutes. "Wait," Daniel said. "Look at this." He turned the phone toward her. Sarah watched the video, her face going through a dozen emotions. Surprise, confusion, something that looked almost like longing. Then she looked away. "We look drunk," she said flatly. "We look like more than that." She finally met his eyes. "What are you saying?" Daniel didn't know what he was saying. He just knew that the woman in that video, laughing in his arms, looked happier than he'd been in years. And the man holding her looked like someone he'd forgotten he could be. "I'm saying maybe we should figure out what happened before we panic," he said. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. "I'm already panicking." I noticed. Despite everything, she almost smiled. Then her phone buzzed. She pulled it from her clutch, and her face fell. "It's Jennifer, from HR. Don't answer it." "I have to." She's called 4 times. Sarah pressed the phone to her ear. "Hello?" Daniel watched her face transform as she listened, from worried to horrified, to something approaching devastation. "I understand," she said quietly. "Yes, Monday morning. I'll be there." She hung up. When she looked at Daniel, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "There's been a complaint. Someone saw us leave together. They're concerned about improper workplace conduct. I have to meet with HR on Monday." Daniel felt anger surge through him, hot and protective. "That's ridiculous. Nothing happened." "We don't know that," Sarah said softly. "And even if nothing did, Daniel, we left together. We came here. I woke up in your bed. That's enough." She'd called him Daniel, not Mr. Cross. Daniel. And somehow, that felt more intimate than waking up next to her. "I'll handle HR," he said. "You'll make it worse," Sarah replied. "If you try to protect me, everyone will assume the worst. That I'm sleeping my way up the corporate ladder. That you're taking advantage. No matter what we say, this looks bad." She was right. Daniel knew she was right. But the injustice of it burned. "So what do we do?" Sarah picked up her shoes. "We figure out what happened. We get our stories straight. And on Monday, we deal with the consequences." "Together," Daniel said. She looked at him for a long moment. "You keep saying that. Together. But Mr. Cross, we're not together. You're my boss. I'm your assistant. Last night was, whatever it was a mistake." The word stung more than it should have. Was it? What else could it be? Daniel didn't have an answer. Sarah's phone buzzed again. "My car's here," she said. She walked toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I don't regret last night. Even though I don't remember it. Even though it's probably ruined my career. There's this part of me that's glad it happened." She left before Daniel could respond. He stood in his empty penthouse, surrounded by evidence of a night he couldn't remember, and feelings he didn't know what to do with. His phone rang. His brother. Nathan. Daniel considered ignoring it, but Nathan would just keep calling. "What? Good morning to you too, sunshine." Nathan's voice was far too cheerful. "Rough night?" You could say that. I could also say that you left your own party with your assistant draped over you like a fancy scarf. I could say that Marcus told me you two were practically making out in the elevator. I could say, "Nathan, oh, this is serious. You're using your CEO voice on me." Daniel sank onto the couch. "I don't remember anything after about 11. Silence. Then Nathan's voice came back, all humor gone. "Danny, what do you mean you don't remember?" "I mean I woke up this morning with Sarah in my bed, and no memory of how she got there. Did you? I don't know. Neither of us knows. It's a complete blank." Nathan swore softly. Okay. First thing, you need to piece together the timeline. Who saw you? What did they see? And Danny, you need to figure out if anything actually happened, because if it did, and you were both that drunk, that's a whole different conversation. Daniel's stomach twisted. "I know. Do you have feelings for her?" The question caught Daniel off guard. "What?" "Sarah. Do you have feelings for her? Because in all the years I've known you, since Mom died, since you built that company from nothing, I've never seen you look at anyone the way you looked at her last night. And trust me, brother, I was watching." Daniel leaned back, closing his eyes. Did he have feelings for Sarah? He thought about the way she brought him coffee every morning, always somehow knowing when he needed it most. The way she laughed at his terrible jokes when no one else did. How she'd stayed late every night for the past month, helping him prepare for the investor meeting. Never complaining, always encouraging. The way his day felt somehow incomplete if he didn't see her smile. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think I do." "Then you need to figure this out, because either you just had a drunken hookup with your assistant, which is bad, or you have actual feelings for her, which is complicated, or both, which is a disaster." "Thanks for the pep talk." "I'm serious, Danny. Sarah's not like the women you usually date. She's real, genuine. If you hurt her, I won't," Daniel said sharply. "I won't." After Nathan hung up, Daniel sat in silence, trying to organize his thoughts. He needed a plan. He needed to remember. He needed Sarah. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. When he opened it, his blood ran cold. It was a photo. From last night. Sarah in his arms, her dress hiked up, his hands on her thighs. They were in a darkened hallway, pressed against a wall, kissing like the world was ending. And below the photo, a message. "Saw this last night. Thought you should know what people will be talking about on Monday. You might want to do some damage control." Daniel stared at the image, at the evidence of a passion he couldn't remember, but could feel echoing through his body. Whoever they'd been last night, drunk and uninhibited, they'd wanted each other desperately. The question was, did they still want each other in the harsh light of day? And could they survive what was coming? Daniel forwarded the photo to Sarah with a simple message. "We need to talk. Today. Please." 3 dots appeared immediately. Sarah was typing. Then they stopped. Started again. Finally, a message came through. "My place. 2 o'clock. We end this, or we figure out where it starts." Daniel read the message 3 times, his heart pounding. End this, or figure out where it starts. As if there was a choice, as if he hadn't already chosen her the moment he saw her sleeping in his bed this morning, vulnerable and beautiful, and somehow right where she belonged. Sarah's apartment was nothing like Daniel expected. He'd imagined something small and cramped, maybe a studio with minimal furniture. Instead, he found himself in a cozy 1-bedroom filled with plants, bookshelves overflowing with novels, and artwork that actually meant something. It was warm. Lived in. The kind of place that made his sterile penthouse feel like a hotel room. Sarah opened the door in jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair damp from a shower. Without makeup, with shadows under her eyes from stress and probably tears, she was more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. "Come in," she said quietly. Daniel stepped inside, and she closed the door behind him. For a moment, they just stood there, the air thick with everything unsaid. "Coffee?" Sarah asked. "Please." She moved to the kitchen, and Daniel followed. He watched as she prepared 2 cups with the kind of efficiency she brought to everything. She knew how he took his coffee. Of course she did. She knew everything about him. "I got 4 more messages," Sarah said, not looking at him. "People being helpful, letting me know that photos from last night are circulating. Apparently, we were quite the show. I got the same messages. Did you get the one of us in the coat closet?" Daniel's head snapped up. "No." Sarah pulled out her phone and handed it to him. The image made his chest tighten. They were indeed in a coat closet, barely visible in the dim light. Sarah was sitting on a shelf, her legs wrapped around his waist, his face buried in her neck. The passion was obvious, undeniable. "We looked like we couldn't keep our hands off each other," Sarah said softly. "Maybe we couldn't." She took her phone back, her fingers trembling slightly. "I've been trying to remember. I've spent the last 4 hours just sitting here, trying to force my brain to show me something, anything, but it's all just gone." "Same." Sarah handed him a coffee and leaned against the counter. "I called my best friend, Maya. She was at the party. She said we were inseparable all night, that we kept sneaking off together, that we looked, her word, smitten." "Smitten," Daniel repeated, "like teenagers, like people who'd been waiting for this moment and finally got permission to feel what they were feeling." Sarah wrapped her hands around her mug. "Maya said something else. She said right before we left, she asked me if I was sure, and I told her I'd never been more sure of anything in my life." The words hung between them. "What do you think you meant?" Daniel asked. Sarah finally met his eyes. "I think drunk Sarah said what sober Sarah has been too afraid to say for months, maybe years." Daniel's heart hammered. "Which is that I have feelings for you. Real feelings. The kind that keep me up at night. The kind that make me put on makeup every morning and hope you'll notice. The kind that made me learn your coffee order, your schedule, your moods. Because knowing you felt like this privilege I didn't deserve but couldn't give up." She looked away, blinking rapidly. "And now it's out there, and I've ruined everything." Daniel set down his coffee and crossed to her. "Sarah." "Don't," she whispered. "Don't be nice to me. Don't try to make this okay. I know how this works. Monday morning, you'll suggest I transfer to a different department. Or maybe I'll just resign, save us both the awkwardness. We'll tell HR it was a one-time mistake fueled by alcohol, and we'll never talk about it again. And in a year, you'll have a new assistant who doesn't look at you like you hung the moon, and I'll have a new job where I don't spend every day pretending I don't care. Is that what you think I want?" Daniel asked. "Isn't it?" He reached out, gently turning her face toward him. "I spent the morning trying to remember last night. Not just what happened, but why. Why I would drink that much. Why I would let my guard down. Why I would risk everything I've built." And poor Sarah breathed. "And then I realized I've been building walls for so long, I forgot what it feels like to want something that scares me. You scare me, Sarah. You've scared me from the day you walked into my office for your interview and told me my company culture was toxic and you could fix it." Despite everything, Sarah smiled. "I can't believe you hired me after that." "I hired you because of that. Because you were brave and honest, and you saw through all my bullshit." He stepped closer, and she didn't move away. "And every day since, you've been proving me right. Not just as an assistant, but as a person who makes my life better just by being in it." Daniel, Sarah's voice was barely audible. I'm terrified of what happens on Monday. I'm terrified of losing my job, of everyone thinking I slept my way into your good graces. But I'm more terrified of pretending last night didn't matter. Because drunk or not, I think last night was my heart finally saying what my head's been screaming at me to keep quiet. Sarah set down her mug with shaking hands. What are you saying? I'm saying I have feelings for you too. Real ones. The kind I've been ignoring because they're inconvenient and complicated and completely inappropriate given our professional relationship. But they're there, Sarah. They've been there. Tears spilled down her cheeks. This is such a mess. I know. We could both lose everything. I know that too. So, what do we do? Daniel wanted to kiss her. God, he wanted to pull her close and see if reality could match whatever happened last night. But first, they needed answers. We piece together the truth, he said. We figure out exactly what happened, and then we decide what we're going to do about it. Sarah nodded, wiping her eyes. Okay, let's start from the beginning. What's the last thing you remember clearly? Daniel thought back. Your ex. I remember seeing you talking to him. You looked upset. Jason, Sarah said with distaste. He cornered me by the bar. Started going on about his new girlfriend, how happy he is, how he's glad we broke up, because now he's found someone who actually has ambition. As if working for you isn't ambitious enough. What an ass. My thoughts exactly. Then you appeared. You were suddenly there, and you put your hand on my back and said something about needing me for an important introduction. You saved me. Daniel did remember that. The surge of protectiveness when he saw Sarah's face fall, the way he'd wanted to punch her ex, how natural it felt to lead her away, his hand on her lower back. After that, he prompted, we did actually have an important introduction. That investor from Tokyo. But then he started asking about my plans for expansion, and I couldn't focus because you were standing so close, and I could smell your perfume, and all I wanted was... He stopped. Sarah's eyes were wide. What did you want? You, Daniel said simply. I wanted you. The confession settled between them, huge and undeniable. Sarah took a shaky breath. I went to get champagne after that, just to have something to do with my hands. But I wasn't used to drinking, and everything started getting fuzzy. I remember dancing. We danced a lot. We did. Daniel had flashes now, fragments. Sarah's laugh, the way she fit against him, how easy it felt. And there was a balcony. Did we go outside? Sarah's face lit up. Yes. The balcony. We were talking about your mother. You told me about her garden, how she used to grow roses. Daniel's chest tightened. He never talked about his mother, not to anyone except Nathan. What else did I say? You said you started the company because of her, because she always told you to build something that mattered, something that would outlast you. And you said sometimes you worry you've built walls instead of bridges. The memory crashed over him. They'd been standing under the stars, and Sarah had asked him why he always seemed so alone. And he'd told her. He'd told her everything, about the loneliness of success, the pressure of being responsible for thousands of employees, the fear that he'd become so focused on the company, he'd forgotten how to be human. And Sarah had listened. She hadn't tried to fix him or offer empty platitudes. She'd just listened, and then she'd said, You told me I wasn't alone, Daniel said, the memory crystallizing. You said success doesn't have to mean isolation, that maybe I just hadn't found the right person to share it with. Sarah nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. And then, you kissed me. The memory hit Daniel like a physical force. The balcony. Sarah's face tilted up toward his, her eyes reflecting the city lights. The moment of hesitation, when he'd thought about all the reasons he shouldn't. And then the moment when none of those reasons mattered. "I kissed you first," he said, almost to himself. "You did," Sarah confirmed. "And it was, God, Daniel, it was perfect. Soft and slow, and like you'd been thinking about it for as long as I had." More memories flooded back, the taste of champagne on her lips, the small sound she made when he pulled her closer, the way the world had narrowed to just the two of them. "We stayed out there for a while," Sarah continued, her voice distant with recollection. "Just talking. Kissing. You kept saying we should go back inside, and I kept saying just 5 more minutes. We were like teenagers sneaking around." Daniel smiled despite himself. "That doesn't sound like me. It wasn't CEO Daniel Cross. It was just you, the real you." She stepped closer. "And I fell so hard, Daniel. In those moments on the balcony, I fell completely." His hand found hers, their fingers interlacing. "When did we leave?" "Around 1, I think. Marcus drove us. I remember being in the car, and you were holding my hand, and I kept thinking this was real. This was actually happening. We were finally admitting what we both felt. And then we got to my place. And then," Sarah took a shaky breath, "we couldn't keep our hands off each other. The elevator, the hallway. We were kissing like we'd been starved for it. Which, I guess we had been." Daniel pulled up the photo on his phone again, the one of them against the wall. "This must have been outside my door." Sarah looked at the image and blushed. "I remember this moment. I remember you pressed me against the wall and asked if I was sure, if I really wanted this. And I said yes, definitely yes. And inside," she met his eyes, "inside, we talked more. I know that sounds crazy, but we did. You made me tea because I was getting sleepy, and we sat on your couch, and you told me about your father, how he'd wanted you to take over his law firm, and how betrayed he felt when you struck out on your own." More pieces fell into place. Daniel remembered Sarah's head on his shoulder, her hand in his, the way it felt to finally share the weight he'd been carrying. "You told me about your mom," Sarah said softly. "How she's proud of you but worried you work too hard. How you feel guilty for not visiting more often. I don't talk about that stuff. You did last night. With me." Daniel cupped her face in his hands. "Why with you? Why now?" Sarah's eyes searched his. "Maybe because we've been dancing around this for so long, we were both exhausted from pretending. Maybe the champagne just gave us permission to be honest. I wish I remembered all of it. Me too. But Daniel, I remember the important parts. I remember feeling safe with you. Cherished. Like for the first time in my life, someone saw all of me. Not just the parts I show at work, and wanted me anyway." Daniel's thumb traced her cheekbone. "Did we? I don't know," Sarah admitted. "After we talked, things get fuzzy. I remember kissing. A lot of kissing. And then, nothing. I woke up in your bed in your shirt, but I don't know if we actually, we need to know," Daniel said. Sarah nodded. "How?" Daniel thought for a moment, then pulled out his phone. He dialed Marcus's number. "Boss?" Marcus answered immediately. "You okay?" "Marcus, I need you to be completely honest with me. What did you see last night when you drove Sarah and me home?" A pause. "How much do you remember?" "Not enough. Please, Marcus." Marcus sighed. "You two were pretty drunk. Touchy-feely, lots of laughing and whispering. When we got to your building, you could barely walk straight. I helped you both into the elevator, made sure you got to your door. You were coherent enough to unlock it, and Sarah was giggling about something. That's when I left. Was I in control of my faculties? Honestly. You were drunk, but not blackout. You knew what you were doing. And Sarah, she was tipsy and happy, but also aware. You both seemed very into each other, if that's what you're asking. Daniel felt Sarah's hand squeeze his. Thanks, Marcus. Boss? Whatever happened, Sarah's good people. Don't let the gossip mill destroy something real. Daniel hung up and looked at Sarah. We were drunk, but not incapacitated. We made choices last night. What does that mean for us? Sarah asked. It means whatever happened, we both wanted it. We were both there, both present, both choosing each other. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes again. I'm scared, Daniel. Of what? Of Monday. Of losing you, either as my boss or whatever else we might be. Of everyone thinking I'm using you. Of you waking up one day and regretting this. Regretting me. Daniel pulled her into his arms, and she melted against him. I'm scared, too. But Sarah, I've spent my whole adult life playing it safe. Building walls, maintaining distance, never letting anyone close enough to hurt me. And you know what? I've been miserable. Successful, but miserable. Sarah pulled back to look at him. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe last night, drunk and uninhibited, we did something right. We stopped being afraid. We stopped pretending. We chose each other. Consequences be damned. But the consequences are real. I know. HR on Monday. Office gossip. Potential conflicts of interest. All of it. He brushed her hair back from her face. But Sarah, I don't want to go back to pretending. I don't want to undo last night, even if I can't remember all of it. Because what I do remember, what I feel right now holding you, is the most real thing I've felt in years. Sarah's breath hitched. What are we going to do? We're going to face Monday together. We're going to deal with HR, with the gossip, with all of it. And then we're going to figure out what this is between us without alcohol, without pressure, with clear heads and open hearts. That's terrifying. It is, Daniel agreed. But Sarah, you told me last night I wasn't alone. Well, neither are you. We face this together. Sarah stood on her toes and kissed him. It was soft and tentative, nothing like the passion captured in those photos. But it was real. Sober. Chosen. When they pulled apart, Sarah was smiling through her tears. I need to know one thing, she said. Anything. If we do this, if we try to make this real, you can't protect me at work. I need to earn my place on my own merit. People already think I got my job because of my looks. If they think we're together, they'll think worse, Daniel finished. I know. So we do this right. We document everything. We're transparent with HR. And Sarah, if at any point this compromises your career, we stop. Your professional reputation matters more than my personal happiness. Sarah shook her head. Don't say that. I mean it. I know you do. That's why She stopped, biting her lip. Why you what? She took a deep breath. That's why I'm falling in love with you. Because you'd put my career before your heart. Because you see me as more than just your assistant. Because even drunk and reckless, you asked if I was sure. You've been protecting me all along, even from yourself. Daniel's world tilted. Sarah, I know it's too soon to say that. I know we haven't even had a real first date. But Daniel, I've been working for you for 2 years. I've seen you at your best and worst. I've watched you build an empire while staying kind. I've seen you fight for your employees, sacrifice for others, carry weight you shouldn't have to carry alone. So, yeah, maybe last night was drunk and messy, but my feelings aren't. They're real and terrifying and completely inappropriate, but they're mine. Daniel kissed her again, deeper this time, pulling her close. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling too, he admitted. have been for longer than I want to admit. They spent the rest of Saturday afternoon piecing together more fragments of the night. Sarah made them lunch, simple sandwiches that they ate on her couch while scrolling through photos and messages from other party attendees. Each new image revealed another moment. Daniel spinning Sarah on the dance floor, Sarah laughing at something he whispered in her ear. The two of them in deep conversation by the window, their body language screaming intimacy. "We really weren't hiding it," Sarah murmured, looking at a photo where Daniel's hand was clearly on her lower back, his eyes locked on her face while she talked to someone else. "I think we were past the point of caring." Daniel's phone buzzed. Nathan again. "I should take this," he said. Sarah nodded, clearing their plates while Daniel answered. "Before you say anything," Nathan started, "I did some digging. Talked to people who were at the party. Want the good news or bad news first?" "There's good news. Relatively. Most people thought you two were cute together. There's some gossip, sure, but the general consensus is that it was about time you pulled your head out of your ass and noticed her." Daniel blinked. "Seriously? Sarah's popular, Danny. People like her. She's kind, hard-working, and real. So when they saw you two together, most of them were happy for you. It's just the few assholes who are making it weird." "And the bad news?" Nathan's voice turned serious. "Jennifer in HR isn't one of the people who thinks it's cute. She's concerned about liability, about power dynamics, about the company's reputation. She's gunning for one of you to transfer or quit." Daniel's jaw clenched. "That's not happening." "I figured you'd say that." So I called Dad's lawyer friend, the one who specializes in employment law. She says, as long as everything was consensual, you're transparent with HR, and you put safeguards in place to prevent any actual favoritism or abuse of power, you should be fine. But Danny, it's going to be messy. "I know. Is she worth it?" Daniel looked toward the kitchen where Sarah was humming while she washed dishes, completely unaware of how much she'd turned his world upside down. "Yeah," he said. "She is. Then fight for her. But be smart about it." After hanging up, Daniel found Sarah staring at her phone, her face pale. "What's wrong?" She turned the screen toward him. It was an email from someone named Jennifer Dawson, the HR director. The message was formal and cold, requesting both Daniel and Sarah attend a meeting Monday morning at 8 a.m. Subject: Professional Conduct Investigation. "She doesn't waste time," Sarah said quietly. "This is my fault. If I'd just gone home last night instead of—" "Stop!" Daniel interrupted. "This isn't your fault. We were both there. We both made choices. And Sarah, I meant what I said. We face this together." She nodded, but he could see the fear in her eyes. "I've never been in trouble at work before. I've never even had a bad performance review. And now I'm being investigated for sleeping with my boss." "We don't know that we—" "It doesn't matter," Sarah said. "Even if we didn't, perception is reality. Everyone thinks we did, so we might as well have." Daniel pulled her into his arms. "Then let's make it worth it." She looked up at him, confused. "What?" "If everyone already thinks we're together, if we're already going to face the consequences, then let's actually be together. Let's go on a real date. Let's see if this thing between us is as real as it feels, without the alcohol and the drama." Sarah's eyes widened. "You want to date me? Like, officially?" "I want to try. I want to see where this goes. And Sarah, I want to do it right, which means we need to establish boundaries at work. We need to be transparent about our relationship, and we need to make sure you're protected professionally. And if HR says we can't, then I'll hire you the best employment lawyer in the city and fight them. But Sarah, I'm not letting you take the fall for this. If someone has to leave, it'll be me." She shook her head frantically. No, absolutely not. That company is your life. You built it from nothing. I won't let you sacrifice it for me. Then we fight, Daniel said. Together. Sarah searched his face, then nodded. Together. That evening, they ordered takeout and binge-watched a series Sarah loved, but Daniel had never heard of. It was domestic and comfortable, and exactly what they both needed. When Sarah's head dropped onto his shoulder halfway through the third episode, Daniel felt something settle in his chest. Peace. For the first time in years, sitting in this cramped apartment eating cold Chinese food with his assistant's drool on his shirt, Daniel Cross felt at peace. Sarah, he murmured. She was half asleep. I'm glad. I don't remember last night. She sat up, blinking at him. What? I'm glad, he repeated, because now we get to build this from the ground up. No alcohol, no confusion, just us figuring out what we are to each other. We get to have a first kiss we'll both remember, a first date. All of it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears for what felt like the 100th time that day. You're going to make me cry again. I seem to have that effect on you. She swatted his arm, laughing through her tears. That's because you say stuff like that, and I don't know how to process it. One day, you're my terrifying CEO boss who barely looks at me, and the next, you're this. This what? This man who sees me, really sees me, who makes me feel like I matter beyond what I can do for you professionally. She took his hand. Do you know how rare that is? Daniel brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. I'm beginning to understand. They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, the TV still playing in the background. When Daniel woke around midnight, he carefully extracted himself and carried Sarah to her bed. She mumbled something incoherent and immediately burrowed into her pillows. He should leave, go home to his own bed. But instead, Daniel found himself slipping off his shoes and lying down beside her, fully clothed, on top of the covers. Sarah rolled over and curled against him in her sleep, and Daniel's arms came around her automatically. This was different from waking up in his bed with no memories. This was a choice, a conscious decision to be close to her, to hold her, to let himself be vulnerable. His phone buzzed. Another message from Nathan. Mom called. She heard about your party antics. She wants to meet Sarah. Daniel stared at the message, then at Sarah sleeping peacefully in his arms. His mother wanting to meet her. HR investigations, office gossip, professional consequences. It should all feel overwhelming. Instead, lying there in the dark with Sarah's soft breathing against his chest, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt since before his mother died. Hope. Not hope that everything would work out. Not hope that the problems would magically disappear. But hope that whatever happened, whoever they turned out to be together, it would be worth fighting for. Sunday morning, Daniel woke to Sarah propped on one elbow, watching him. Hi, she said softly. Hi. You stayed. I did. She smiled, tracing a finger along his jawline. I could get used to this. Good, Daniel said, because I'm planning on making it a habit. They spent Sunday preparing for the HR meeting. Daniel had his lawyer draw up documents establishing a formal disclosure of their relationship and protocols to ensure Sarah's position wasn't compromised. Sarah prepared a statement outlining her qualifications and achievements independent of her relationship with Daniel. It was clinical and professional and absolutely necessary. But Daniel hated every second of it. He hated that they had to justify something that felt so right. That evening, as Daniel was preparing to leave Sarah's apartment, she grabbed his hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know something. What? This weekend, even with all the stress and fear and uncertainty, has been the best weekend of my life, because I gotta be honest about how I feel. I got to be with you without pretending. So no matter what Jennifer Dawson says tomorrow, I don't regret any of it." Daniel pulled her close, kissing her with all the emotion he couldn't put into words. When they broke apart, both breathless, he said, "Tomorrow, we show them who we are. Separately and together. And Sarah, no matter what happens, I'm not giving you up. Not for HR, not for gossip, not for anything." Monday morning arrived with the weight of judgment. Daniel had barely slept, running through scenarios in his head. He'd faced hostile takeovers, economic downturns, and cutthroat competitors. But sitting across from HR while they questioned his relationship with Sarah felt more daunting than any boardroom battle. He arrived at the office early, surprised to find Sarah already there. She was wearing her most professional outfit, her hair pulled back severely, minimal makeup. She looked like she was preparing for war. "Hey," Daniel said, stopping by her desk. "Hey." She didn't look up from her computer. "Sarah." Finally, she met his eyes, and he saw the fear there. "Daniel, we can't. Not here. Not now. We have to be completely professional until this is resolved." He wanted to argue, to pull her into his office, and hold her until the fear went away. But she was right. "Okay," he said. "But after," she agreed softly. At 7:55, they walked separately to the HR conference room. Jennifer Dawson was already there, along with 2 other HR representatives Daniel didn't recognize. Marcus was there too, as head of security. "Mr. Cross, Ms. Mitchell, please sit," Jennifer said, her voice neutral but her eyes cold. They sat on opposite sides of the table, professional, distant. It killed Daniel. "Let's get right to it," Jennifer continued. "Multiple employees reported seeing the 2 of you in compromising positions at Friday night's event. This has raised concerns about workplace conduct, potential harassment, and abuse of power. We need to understand exactly what happened and determine if any policies were violated." Sarah's hands were clenched in her lap. Daniel wanted to reach for her, but kept his hands on the table. "Ms. Mitchell," Jennifer turned to Sarah, "has Mr. Cross ever made you feel uncomfortable? Has he ever used his position of power to coerce you into any situation you didn't want?" "No," Sarah said firmly. "Never. But you did leave the party together." "We did." "And you spent the night at his residence?" Sarah's cheeks flushed, but her voice stayed steady. "I did. Can you help us understand how that happened?" Sarah took a breath. "Mr. Cross and I have worked together for 2 years. Over that time, we've developed a friendship in addition to our professional relationship. On Friday night, after consuming alcohol, we both acknowledged feelings that went beyond friendship. We made the mutual decision to leave together." Jennifer's eyebrow arched. "Mutual?" "Completely," Sarah said. "Daniel, Mr. Cross, never pressured me. In fact, he was the one who kept asking if I was sure, if I was comfortable. Even drunk, he was respectful and concerned about my consent." "And yet you can't remember everything that happened," Jennifer pressed. "No," Sarah admitted. "But I remember enough to know that I made my own choices. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be with him." Jennifer turned to Daniel. "Mr. Cross, do you understand the power dynamic at play here? Ms. Mitchell reports directly to you. She's dependent on you for her job, her references, her career advancement. How can any relationship between you be truly consensual, given that imbalance?" Daniel had prepared for this question. "You're right that there's a power imbalance, which is why we're here being transparent about our relationship. We're not trying to hide it or pretend it doesn't exist. We're asking for guidance on how to handle it appropriately." He slid the documents his lawyer had prepared across the table. "I've outlined protocols to ensure Sarah's position is protected. She'll report to my COO instead of me, Her performance reviews will be conducted by an independent committee. Any decisions about her employment, including raises, promotions, or terminations, will go through that committee without my input, and we're both open to couples counseling to address any concerns about coercion or manipulation. Jennifer read through the documents, her expression unreadable. This is very thorough. I want Sarah protected, Daniel said, from gossip, from retaliation, and frankly, from me if this relationship doesn't work out. Her career should never suffer because of her personal life. That's very noble, Jennifer said dryly. But Mr. Cross, the fact remains that you pursued a relationship with a subordinate. Even with safeguards, that puts the company at risk. I didn't pursue it, Daniel said quietly. Sarah's head snapped toward him. What? I mean, I did. I do. I have feelings for Sarah, but I never acted on them while we were working together. Friday night, we were both impaired. We both made choices we might not have made sober, but we made them together. No one pursued anyone. It just happened. Jennifer leaned back in her chair. Miss Mitchell, if you could step outside for a moment. I'd like to speak with Mr. Cross privately. Sarah's eyes went wide with panic, but she stood and left the room. The moment the door closed, Jennifer's professional mask slipped. Daniel, what the hell are you thinking? He'd known Jennifer since she started with the company 5 years ago. She was more than HR. She was a friend. I'm thinking that I care about her, Daniel said honestly, and I don't want her to pay for my feelings. Then let her go, Jennifer said bluntly. Transfer her to a different department, or help her find a position at another company. Because, Daniel, this can't work. You're the CEO. She's your assistant. Even with all these safeguards, people will talk. They'll assume she's getting special treatment. Every accomplishment she has will be questioned. Is that what you want for her? No, Daniel said. But I also don't want to make decisions for her. Sarah's an adult. She has agency. If she wants to stay, if she wants to try to make this work, don't I owe it to her to let her make that choice? Jennifer studied him. You really care about her? I do. Enough to let her go if that's what's best for her career? Daniel's chest tightened. If that's what she wants, yes. Jennifer nodded slowly. Okay, let's bring her back in. When Sarah returned, Jennifer's professional mask was back in place. Ms. Mitchell, I need to be very direct with you. If you choose to pursue a relationship with Mr. Cross, your career here will be more difficult. You'll face skepticism, gossip, and constant scrutiny. Every success will be questioned. Every failure will be amplified. Your professional reputation could be permanently damaged. Do you understand that? Sarah's voice didn't waver. I do. And you still want to proceed? I don't know, Sarah said honestly. I need time to think about it. But I do know that I don't want my choices made for me. I don't want Daniel sacrificing his company for me. And I don't want to be forced out of a job I love because we might have feelings for each other. She looked at Daniel. Whatever I decide, it needs to be my decision. Jennifer looked between them. Fair enough. Here's what's going to happen. You're both suspended for the rest of the week while we complete our investigation. During that time, I expect you to have no contact. Use the space to really think about what you want and what you're willing to sacrifice for it. We'll reconvene Friday to discuss next steps. Daniel's heart sank. A week without seeing Sarah, without talking to her, felt impossible. But he nodded, understood. Sarah gathered her things, her face carefully blank. As they left the conference room, walking separately down the hall, Daniel wanted to stop her, to tell her it would be okay, that they'd figure it out. But he couldn't, not with everyone watching. At the elevator, Sarah finally looked at him. Her eyes were bright with tears, but her voice was steady. "Don't give up on me," she whispered. "Never," Daniel promised. The elevator doors closed between them. The week apart was torture. Daniel threw himself into work from home, taking meetings remotely, reviewing reports, anything to distract himself. But every night, he found himself staring at his phone, his finger hovering over Sarah's number. He couldn't call. Jennifer had been clear. But God, he wanted to. Wednesday afternoon, Nathan showed up at his penthouse with groceries and a determined expression. "You look like hell," Nathan announced, pushing past Daniel into the apartment. "Thanks." "When's the last time you ate?" Daniel couldn't remember. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're pining." Nathan started unpacking food. "Have you heard from her?" "I'm not supposed to contact her." "That's not what I asked." Daniel slumped onto a bar stool. "No, nothing. And it's killing me. What if she's changed her mind? What if she's decided I'm not worth the hassle?" Nathan paused in his unpacking. "Do you really think that little of her?" "What?" "Sarah's not the type to run just because things get hard." "She's been your assistant for 2 years, Danny. She's dealt with hostile board members, impossible deadlines, and your terrible moods. You think a little HR investigation is going to scare her off?" Daniel wanted to believe that. "She's young. Her whole career is ahead of her. Why would she risk it for me?" "Maybe because you're worth it," Nathan said simply. "Maybe because she loves you." The words hung in the air. Love. Sarah had said she was falling in love with him, but in the harsh light of reality, with her career on the line, would that be enough? Thursday evening, Daniel was reviewing contracts when his doorbell rang. His heart leaped. Sarah? But when he opened the door, it was his mother. Elizabeth Cross stood in the hallway, elegant as always, her eyes assessing. "Mom." "Nathan said you needed me," she said, walking past him into the apartment. We're not supposed to." "I'm not Sarah," Elizabeth interrupted. "I'm your mother." "And you look terrible." She settled onto his couch, looking around at the takeout containers and scattered papers. "Tell me about her." Daniel didn't want to. He wanted to keep Sarah separate from this, protected. But his mother's eyes were kind, and he was so tired of holding everything in. So he told her. About Friday night. About waking up with no memories but feeling certain it had mattered. About the weekend, piecing together fragments. About Sarah's honesty, her strength, her fear. About falling for someone he shouldn't have but couldn't help loving anyway. "You love her," Elizabeth said when he finished. It wasn't a question. Daniel nodded, the admission feeling both terrifying and right. "She makes me want to be better. Not just successful, but good. Human. She sees past the CEO to whoever I am underneath, and she likes what she finds. How do I walk away from that?" "Then don't," Elizabeth said simply. "But Mom, her career will survive or it won't. But Daniel, your happiness matters too. You've spent your whole adult life building that company, sacrificing everything personal for professional success. When's the last time you put yourself first?" Daniel couldn't answer. His mother took his hand. "Your father and I had our problems. You know that. But the one thing we did right was choosing each other, even when it was inconvenient. Even when his partners thought he was crazy for marrying a teacher instead of someone from their social circle. He chose me, and I chose him, and we built a life." "What if I'm being selfish?" Daniel asked. "What if pursuing this ruins her?" "What if not pursuing it ruins you both?" Elizabeth countered. "Daniel, you can't make decisions for her. All you can do is be honest about what you want, and let her make her own choice. Trust her to know her own mind." Friday morning arrived too quickly. Daniel dressed in his most professional suit, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. At 9 a.m., he arrived at the office to find Sarah already in the conference room. She looked exhausted. dark circles under her eyes, but determined. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." They sat in uncomfortable silence until Jennifer arrived with her team. "Thank you both for your patience this week," Jennifer began. "We've completed our investigation and spoken with multiple witnesses. Our findings are as follows. While the relationship between Mr. Cross and Ms. Mitchell raises concerns about professional conduct, we found no evidence of coercion, harassment, or abuse of power. All witnesses confirm that Ms. Mitchell appeared willing and enthusiastic. The relationship, while inadvisable, appears to have been consensual." Relief flooded through Daniel. Sarah's shoulders dropped slightly. "However," Jennifer continued, "we cannot have a CEO dating his direct report. It sets a problematic precedent and exposes the company to liability. Therefore, we're offering two options. Option 1, Ms. Mitchell transfers to a different department with a comparable salary and position where she does not report to Mr. Cross. Option 2, Ms. Mitchell voluntarily resigns with a generous severance package and excellent references." Sarah's face went pale. "Those are my only choices?" "Given the circumstances, yes," Jennifer said. "I know it seems unfair, but we have to protect the company and all employees." "What about Daniel?" Sarah asked. "He's not being punished at all." "Mr. Cross is the CEO and owner of the company. His position is different." "So I'm the only one who has to sacrifice something?" Sarah's voice was rising. "That's exactly the power dynamic you were worried about. He gets everything, and I have to give up the job I love or transfer to a department I don't want." Daniel found his voice. "Then I'll step down." Everyone turned to stare at him. "What?" Jennifer looked shocked. "I'll step down as CEO, promote my COO. I'll take a different role, one that doesn't have authority over Sarah. She keeps her position. I adjust mine." "Daniel, no," Sarah said immediately. "That's insane." "It's fair," Daniel countered. "You shouldn't have to pay for my feelings. You shouldn't have to give up what you've worked for." "Neither should you." Sarah was standing now. "That company is yours. You built it. I won't let you destroy it for me." "Then what do you want?" Daniel asked. "Tell me what you want, Sarah." "Because I'll do whatever it takes. Transfer, quit, step down, anything. Just tell me what you want." Sarah looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "I want you," she said. "I want us. But not like this. Not with you sacrificing everything. Not with everyone thinking I slept my way into keeping my job. I want a world where we can be together without it costing us everything we've worked for." "That's not an option on the table," Jennifer said quietly. Sarah wiped her eyes and turned to Jennifer. "Then I choose option 2. I'll resign." "No," Daniel said immediately. "Sarah, don't." "It's my choice," Sarah said firmly, "and I'm choosing my integrity. I'm choosing to leave on my terms, with my reputation intact. Because, Daniel, if I stay and transfer, everyone will always wonder. They'll assume you pulled strings, that you protected me. But if I leave cleanly, get references, start somewhere new, I prove that I can make it on my own." Daniel's heart was breaking. "I don't want you to go." Sarah turned to him, her eyes steady despite the tears. "I don't want to go either. But Daniel, this is the right choice. For me, for you, for both of us. I need to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I'm more than just your assistant. That I'm capable and talented and worthy of success independent of you." Jennifer cleared her throat. "Ms. Mitchell, if this is your decision, we'll prepare the paperwork. You'll receive 6 months' salary, full benefits for a year, and exemplary references. We can negotiate a start date for your departure to give you time to transition your responsibilities." 2 weeks, Sarah said. "That's standard notice." Sarah, Daniel tried again. She held up a hand. Please, let me do this. The meeting ended. Jennifer and her team left to prepare documents. Daniel and Sarah sat alone in the conference room, the weight of her decision crushing them both. Come with me, Sarah said suddenly. Daniel looked up. What? Not now. Not right away. But Daniel, in 6 months, after the dust settles, after people forget about the scandal, come with me. Start over. We could go anywhere, do anything. You could build something new. We could build something together. It was crazy. Impossible. Everything Daniel had worked for was here. But looking at Sarah, brave and determined, and offering him a future he'd never let himself imagine, it didn't seem impossible at all. Where would we go? He asked. Sarah smiled through her tears. I don't know. Somewhere no one knows us. Somewhere we can be just Daniel. And Sarah, not CEO and assistant. We could figure out who we are without all the baggage. That's a big risk. Everything worth having is, Sarah said. She reached across the table and took his hand. I'm not asking you to decide now. I'm just asking you to think about it. Think about what you really want. Not what you should want, not what's expected, but what would actually make you happy. Daniel squeezed her hand. You make me happy. Then give us a real chance, not stolen moments between meetings, not hiding what we feel, a real chance to see what we could be. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah trained her replacement, a competent woman named Rachel, who seemed overwhelmed by the responsibility. Daniel watched from a distance as Sarah boxed up her desk, said goodbye to colleagues, prepared to walk away from everything she'd built. They maintained professional distance at the office, but every evening, Sarah came to his penthouse. They'd make dinner together, talk about their days, plan for a future that felt both thrilling and terrifying. I got a job offer, Sarah said one night, curled up on his couch. Already? Yeah. Smaller company, assistant to the vice president of marketing. Good pay, room for growth. I start in 3 weeks. Daniel should have been happy for her. Instead, he felt the distance already opening between them. That's great. It's in Seattle. His heart stopped. Seattle? I know, it's far. But Daniel, it's a fresh start. And if you meant what you said about coming with me eventually, Seattle's a great city for tech startups. You could build something there. You want me to move to Seattle? Not now, Sarah said quickly, but maybe someday. If it's real. Daniel pulled her close. It's real, Sarah. It's the most real thing I've ever felt. Then we can do long distance for a while. Visits, video calls. And when the time is right, when you're ready, you could join me. We could really start over. It sounded perfect and impossible. Daniel had never lived anywhere but this city. His company, his family, his entire life was here. But Sarah was talking about Seattle like it was their future, and he found himself wanting to believe in it. Her last day arrived too quickly. The office threw her a small goodbye party. Daniel gave a professional speech about her contributions, keeping his tone neutral, even though he wanted to tell everyone how extraordinary she was. When everyone else had left, Sarah stood in his office doorway. I guess this is it, she said. For now, she agreed. She crossed to him, and Daniel pulled her into his arms, not caring who might see. I'm going to miss you, he said into her hair. I'm going to miss you too. But Daniel, this isn't goodbye. It's just, see you later. She pulled back and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. I love you, she whispered. I know we haven't said it officially, but I do. I love you. I love you too, Daniel said, the words feeling both natural and monumental. So much it scares me. Good, Sarah smiled, because I'm terrified too. but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." She left, taking his heart with her. The office felt empty without Sarah. Rachel was competent, but she wasn't Sarah. She didn't know that Daniel needed coffee at exactly 3 p.m. when his energy crashed. She didn't laugh at his terrible jokes. She didn't challenge his decisions or tell him when he was being an ass. The first week, Daniel called Sarah every night. The second week, they video chatted. By the third week, he booked a flight to Seattle. "You're coming here?" Sarah sounded delighted and nervous. "I need to see you, to see if this is real, or if we built it up in our heads." "Okay," Sarah said. "Okay, when?" "This weekend." Seattle was different from what Daniel expected. Smaller, rainier, somehow more alive. Sarah met him at the airport, and the moment he saw her, every doubt vanished. This was real. They spent the weekend exploring the city, holding hands like normal people, kissing on street corners without worrying who might see. Sarah showed him her new apartment, small but cozy. She took him to her new office, proud of her work. She introduced him to new friends who knew nothing about scandals or office politics. "I could see myself here," Daniel admitted on Sunday night. They were walking along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting off the water. "Yeah?" Sarah looked up at him, hope in her eyes. "It would take time. I'd need to transition leadership of the company, sell my shares, figure out what comes next. But Sarah, I meant what I said. I want to build a life with you. Not someday, not eventually. Soon." Sarah stopped walking and kissed him. "I love you. God, I love you so much. I love you too." They made a plan. 6 months. Daniel would spend the next 6 months preparing to step away from the company, grooming his replacement, securing his legacy. Sarah would establish herself in Seattle, prove she could thrive independently. And then, they'd start their real life together. The months passed in a blur of flights and video calls and weekends stolen between their responsibilities. It wasn't easy. There were fights about distance and time and the future. There were moments when Daniel wondered if he was crazy to walk away from everything he'd built. But every time he saw Sarah, every time he heard her voice, he remembered why he was doing this. She was his future, not the company, not the success, not the power. Sarah, the woman who saw him, challenged him, loved him for who he was, rather than what he'd accomplished. 6 months later, Daniel stood in his penthouse, boxes packed, looking out at the city he'd called home his entire life. Nathan stood beside him. "You sure about this?" Nathan asked. "Not even a little bit," Daniel admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway. Mom's proud of you, you know. She said you're finally choosing yourself." "I'm choosing Sarah." "Same thing," Nathan said. "She makes you yourself. The real you. The version of you that exists when you're not being the CEO everyone expects." Daniel nodded. "Take care of the company." "I will. But Danny, you take care of yourself. And Sarah, be happy." "I'm going to try." The flight to Seattle felt like flying toward his future. Sarah met him at the airport, and Daniel swept her into his arms, not caring about the stairs. "Hey," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Hey yourself. Ready to start our life?" "So ready." They drove to Sarah's apartment, which was now their apartment. It was smaller than his penthouse, nowhere near as luxurious. But it was home. That night, lying in bed with Sarah in his arms, Daniel realized something. He didn't miss the penthouse. He didn't miss the power or the pressure. He didn't miss being CEO Daniel Cross. Because here, in this small apartment in a city where nobody knew him, he got to be just Daniel. Sarah's Daniel, the man who cooked breakfast and did laundry and built a life based on love instead of success. "Thank you," he whispered into the darkness. Sarah stirred. "For what?" "For seeing me. for being brave enough to leave, for giving us this chance. She rolled over to face him, her hand on his cheek. Thank you for following me, for choosing us over everything else, for loving me enough to start over. They kissed, soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. But inside, wrapped in each other, Daniel and Sarah were building something new, something real, something worth every sacrifice they'd made to get here. 1 year later, Daniel stood in the kitchen of the house they'd bought together, a modest 2-bedroom with a garden that Sarah had filled with flowers. He was making coffee, humming to himself, when arms wrapped around his waist from behind. Morning, Sarah murmured against his back. Morning, beautiful. She came around to face him, and Daniel's heart still skipped a beat. Even after a year, even in her pajamas with messy hair, she took his breath away. Big day, she said. Daniel nodded. Today was the launch of their new company. Not his company. Theirs. They'd spent the last year building it together. A tech startup focused on ethical business practices and employee well-being. Everything Daniel's first company should have been if he hadn't been so focused on success above all else. Nervous? Sarah asked. Terrified, Daniel admitted. Good terrified or bad terrified? Good, he decided, because I'm doing it with you. They arrived at their small office, nothing like the glass tower Daniel had left behind, but it was theirs, built on a foundation of partnership and trust. Their team was small, just 10 people, but they were passionate and brilliant. At noon, they launched their product. By 2 p.m., they had 1,000 downloads. By 5, 10,000. We did it, Sarah breathed, watching the numbers climb. We really did it. Daniel pulled her close, kissing her temple. You did it. This was your idea. Our idea, she corrected. Everything we do now, we do together. That was the deal. That evening, they celebrated with their team, pizza and champagne in the office. It was nothing like the lavish parties Daniel used to throw. It was better. As they were cleaning up, Daniel's phone rang. Nathan. I saw the launch, Nathan said. Impressive numbers. Thanks. Mom wants to know when you're bringing Sarah home for a visit. She's been asking for months. Daniel looked at Sarah, who was laughing at something one of their developers said. Soon, Daniel promised. Nathan, can I ask you something? Always. Do you think I made the right choice, leaving everything behind? Nathan was quiet for a moment. Danny, I think you made the only choice that mattered. You chose to be happy. And from where I'm standing, it looks like it was the right one. After everyone left, Daniel and Sarah stood in their empty office, his arms around her waist, her back against his chest. Do you miss it? Sarah asked quietly. The company? The success? Daniel thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss the rush, the power, knowing I was building something massive. But this is better. Building something with you, something that matters, something that makes the world a little bit better, that's worth more than all the success I had before. Sarah turned in his arms. Even if we're not millionaires anymore. Even then. Though honestly, between his investments and the equity he'd sold, Daniel was still quite wealthy. But money didn't define him anymore. I'm proud of us, Sarah said, for taking the risk, for making it work. Me too. They drove home in comfortable silence, hands linked over the center console. Their house was dark when they arrived, but as they walked up the path, Daniel stopped. Wait here, he said. Why? Just trust me. He ran inside, and a moment later, the garden lit up with string lights he'd spent all week installing. In the center, on the small patio, he'd set up a table with candles and flowers. Daniel, Sarah breathed. What is this? He took her hand and led her to the table. We never had a real first date. I mean, we did, but it was all tangled up with stress and HR and fear. I wanted to give us this, a moment that's just about us. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. You're killing me with the romantic gestures. Good, Daniel said, because I plan on doing them for the rest of our lives. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Is that? Sarah Mitchell, Daniel said, dropping to one knee. A year ago, I woke up in bed with you, and no memory of how you got there. But I knew, even then, that you belonged there. That you belonged in my life. This past year, building a life with you has been the best year of my existence. You challenge me, support me, make me laugh, and make me want to be better. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that choosing you was the best decision I ever made? Sarah was crying, nodding before he even finished. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. Daniel slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. They kissed under the string lights in their garden, and Daniel felt complete. I love you, Sarah said. I love you so much. I love you too. Always. They spent the evening at the garden table, eating the dinner Daniel had ordered from Sarah's favorite restaurant, talking about their future, a future that was bright and uncertain and absolutely perfect. Can I tell you something? Sarah said as they were cleaning up. Anything. That night, the party, when we both got so drunk we couldn't remember. Part of me is glad it happened the way it did. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Why? Because it forced us to be honest. To stop pretending we didn't have feelings for each other. If we'd stayed sober, if we'd kept maintaining that professional distance, we might never have taken the risk. So even though it was messy and complicated and terrifying, I wouldn't change it. Daniel pulled her close. Me neither. Because it gave us this. It gave us us. Later, lying in bed with his fiancée in his arms, Daniel thought about that morning a year ago. Waking up confused and panicked, with no memory of the night before. It had seemed like a disaster then. But now, he understood. Sometimes the best things in life come from the moments when we stop trying to control everything. When we let ourselves be vulnerable and messy and human. He'd spent years being perfect CEO Daniel Cross. But the man he was now, the man who'd walked away from power to build a life with the woman he loved, was so much better. Daniel, Sarah murmured sleepily. Yeah, thank you for not giving up on me. On us. Never, he promised. Not even when I couldn't remember why. She laughed softly, and they fell asleep tangled together, the ring on her finger catching the moonlight. Outside, the city of Seattle hummed with life. But inside their small house, Daniel and Sarah had everything they needed. They had each other. And that was enough. What did